Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Reading Culture. Today we are continuing with the stories from the Six Worlds, the legends of the Law people, and we are going to be looking at another story, a story from a very different section of the text. So if you turn to page 204 in the text, you'll see the start of the section on the Ghost World. And we're going to look at the very first one of these tales from the Ghost World. So the story begins with a note on really how death works in this world. Right, we have a man, right, who suffers a strange sickness, makes him jerk and spasm like fish do when they are caught. This is a person who the people respect, and he has power. Right, remember, power with a capital P. The sickness is stronger than he is, so the people are waiting with him as his power drains away, waiting for him to die. His body jerks and twists, it contracts one last time, then it lies still, lies very still, the way all bodies of the people lie in death. So in this opening paragraph, we see already that death is stronger than this power, right, with a capital P, that even that can't stop it. So the people begin to mourn for him, they cry out, they paint their faces black for him, they begin to unbraid their hair. And then this man who has died opens his eyes. So he's back from the dead. But it says after that, the people are astonished, they are frightened. This is a thing which none of them has ever seen before, that a man should come back from being dead. That's important. So we talked a bit in the last video about how, in the last story we have the main character, the child unborn, right, bringing people back, or his brother anyway, back from the dead in a couple instances, or at least reviving him in some way. But it is clear here that people do not usually come back from the dead. We also have talked a bit about fluidity, traveling through states and worlds, and how the bounds between the dead and the living are perhaps not as solid as we might expect them to be, but there is still clearly a separation there because this is not seen as something that is normal or expected. And then this man who has died begins to speak. We all remember exactly what it was that he said because the old ones have passed it down. Okay, so that's important as well, this idea of the old ones, right? They're the ones who transmit this knowledge. So this is what the man says. My children, listen to me. My kin friends, listen to me. So remember, kin friends, right? That was being translated into English as kin friends is actually uh, the origin of the word Mi'kmaq. So he's been sent back. The guardian has sent me back to tell you what it is like in the ghost world. So we have this figure of the guardian, who he is the power to send him back from the ghost world, and he has been sent back rather than someone from, again, like in the last story, bringing him back from the earthly side. And people say, continue talking to us. We are listening to what you have to say. This man speaks, and he's going to lay out how this system works. The idea is that every person has a ghost body. For a man or woman, it looks like a black shadow of a man or a woman. It has hands and feet, a mouth, and a head, and all the other parts of a human body. It drinks and eats, puts on clothes. It hunts and fishes and amuses itself. With a moose or a beaver, it looks like a black shadow of the animal. For a canoe or a pair of snowshoes, a cooking pot, a sleeping mat, it looks like a shadow of these things, these persons. Right, so we get a sense that there's a shadow world that is it's parallel to this one, and there's a shadow self that's parallel to everyone, existing kind of another plane, as it were, but nevertheless very much like the world in which people live. So this old man raises himself up a little. I have been there in the ghost world. I have seen these things. Right? And then he's going to lay out something that perhaps is a little bit unexpected for some. He's going to explain that he's seen those people who have not acted as they should. They are punished. They are given to eat only the bark of rotten trees. They are made to dance and leap without stopping, for as many moons as the guardian decides they must. He punishes them for not having acted as they should. Right? So this idea of a kind of hell-like punishment, right? He says he's seen those people who have done well, who have conducted themselves as they should. Life is good for them in the ghost world. They have canoes, they have snowshoes, they have bows and clubs and sleeping mats. The sun shines in their wigwams twice a day. The fir boughs and cedar boughs in their wigwams are always green and fresh. The sun renews them when it shines within. Right? So we get a sense of a heaven-like realm for these people. And he explains that the guardian watches over them, and they have always much meat to eat, much meat and fat and marrow. Their chins are always dripping with fat. This is how it is in the ghost world. I have been sent back to bring you certain of the spirit berries of this world. Right, so he's bringing back uh, these berries that are representative of this kind of spiritual existence in the ghost world. Um, so these are some of the fruits which are eaten in the ghost world. And now, my children and kin friends, says the old man, I am returning there to that world. It lies so many days' travel away, that way over the water. Right? So there's this sense that he's coming, right, over the Atlantic, almost over the ocean, right? And he says he's now being taken back again, right? That he's finished. And as he finishes saying these things, that old man dies. He closes his eyes and dies. Once more they mourn for him. They paint their faces black, and now they begin to beat on the birch bark cover of his wigwam to encourage the ghost to come out. So they call for him to come out, but it says there in that very next paragraph, this is on bottom of page 208. When they see that this time he stays dead, then the people bury him. They bury him with all the things he will need in the ghost world: clothes, weapons, food, and all the other things a man needs, so that the ghosts of these things, these persons, can accompany him into the ghost world. So that's interesting, certainly. Um, we have this idea of objects accompanying the dead, ghost world. We see this in many cultures. You see it obviously in ancient Egypt, right? That's why we find all these grave goods. We also see it at the end of our discussion of heroism in reading culture when we look at Beowulf. We're going to see something very similar in terms of grave goods, although they didn't appear to have the same sense. Here, there's almost a sense that these objects, again, have a shadow existence, and thus, when they're laid with him, they appear with him in the ghost world. All right, so now the story continues here. This is on page 209. Now, the people are thinking all the time about this ghost world. He said it lies over there, so many days' journey away across the water, they say to each other. The young men especially are thinking about it. Could living men travel there? It would be a great thing a man could do to travel to the ghost world. Their eyes are looking always now in that direction. Right, so this question of can the ghost world be traveled to, right? We often see this in mythological stories. This question of can the afterlife, right, be reached in the way that you travel? Usually it's often across the water. Now, in the camps of the people, another death occurs. Death comes for the son of one of the hunters. This child is his only son. He has given his heart to this child, and now his child is gone. My son has gone to the ghost world, says this man, and I am going to follow him there. I am going walking to the ghost world. My kin friends, will any of you come with me? I am going to the ghost world to bring back my son. And some of the hunters, the young men, are coming to him. We will go with you, they say. We will see with our eyes what this ghost world is like. The people sing songs about our journey. They will sing songs about our journey, for it will be a great journey. No living man of the people has ever made a journey such as we shall make. So this dead child's father gives presents to all his friends who will go with him. He makes sure their families will have meat to eat while they are away, and soon they are all ready to start. We are all astonished still at what they did. The old ones have told us those things which happened to them. Right, so they're preparing to go here and find the child in the ghost world, reclaim him. And again, we have a repetition of this idea of the old ones. They are the source of knowledge. The idea that this story has been passed down from generation to generation by word of mouth. So each man takes his weapons. He takes his bow. He takes his arrows in their quiver. He takes his war club. So these are presents of the guardian. Right? And they also take these poles that are 9 or 10 feet high. The way to Ghost World lies over there, again, assumedly across the ocean. It is many days' journey. Going to the Ghost World is walking many days, endless walking through water. Their feet are walking on the top of the world beneath the earth. Their bodies are walking through the water world. Their heads are walking in the sky. Their eyes are seeing nothing but water. It stretches blue and shining all around them to the very edge of the edge. Right? So really pay attention to this image. It's very important. Right? First of all, it's interesting that they're walking. That's kind of worth noting. But part of this image of walking is that they're walking in three worlds, right? They're on top of the world beneath the earth. They're walking through the world of water, and their head is in the world of the sky, right? First of all, it's a repetition of the symbolism of three, which we'll see very often. But it's also the sense of, being in all the worlds almost at once. Remember, they're really walking from the world of the living to the ghost world. And there's a sense that they're going to the very edge, right? The edge of the world. It's not clear if they would have conceived of the world as a sphere either at this point. So maybe the idea is you could actually walk right to the edge of the world and fall off. So every night, when it is time for them to sleep, they take their poles and shove the ends down in the sands below the water. They tie these poles together and make a sleeping platform that rises above the water. And they lie on them through the night, sleeping in the sky above the water. In the morning, they walk on. Right? So again, there's a sense that they're in all the worlds at once, but when they sleep, they're sleeping in the sky. This is page 210. Right? They're sleeping in the sky, which, if you think about it, makes sense. Right? The sky is often associated, of course, with the more transcendent and spiritual. Right? The more bodily aspect of existence is connected with the earth. Right? Then the sky, of course, is the world of ideals, of forms, to use Platonic language. Going to the ghost world is a long journey. It is a hard journey. These men are getting tired. The strength is draining away. They're very hungry now, and some of them begin to die. We will see you in the ghost world, say these brave men, making jokes as they are dying. We will get there before you do. And toward the end of their journey, there are only 5 or 6 of them left, of all those hunters who started out. Night comes. Right, so we get this sense that there's only a few remaining now. And we also get that joke, right? That we'll get there before you do, that there's an immediate route to the ghost world, and the immediate route, of course, is death. But the one they're taking is more arduous in a sense. So now is morning. They wake to see the sun, and then they see another thing. They see the ghost world rising above the horizon there in the distance. They see the land curving up above the water like a bow. There's a sense that it's, again, like a bow curving upwards. So maybe they do conceive the world as a sphere. They're at the edge of the sphere. I'm not sure. But in any case, right, we get this really evocative image. And it's also the sense that it's above the horizon. Right? So even though they can walk to it, there's still a sense, again, that's still elevated. They're going up. They're ascending. It is the end of our journey, says the dead child's father. Now I shall find my son. They hasten to jump down into the water, to untie the poles, and to set off for the land they can now see in the distance. Right? So, again, the sun is still the focus here. Right? That's the purpose of the journey. These men have come to the ghost world. Right? They look around amazed. And this is interesting. This description that we get here. It says there are dogs there. They see beaver there. They see moose and caribou. They see canoes and snowshoes and wigwams of the people. So again, it's much like the world of Earth. It's a very earthly, very relatable, at least for them, kind of image. And then a moment later, they see something else. They see a thing which fills them with terror. Right. So if all the rest of these things are kind of everyday, this next experience is not. They see the guardian. It is his wigwam they have been walking towards, and now he has come out, right? And note that description, right? The guardian is a thing of terror. And he obviously has some kind of other real shape, but in the next paragraph, he takes the shape of a man of the people. But he is as huge as a mountain. He is like a mighty waterfall pouring over a steep cliff. He is a terrible storm and wind. He is the guardian, and he takes the shape of a man, but he has all the power of nature itself in his form. And when he speaks, one can imagine that it being this booming voice that says, "Whoever you are, prepare yourselves to die. You have had the arrogance to come to the land of the dead alive. You have entered the ghost world living, and this is forbidden." Right? So there's a sense of trespass here. He says that he is the guardian, the master of souls, and I say you must die. Right? So we get the sense that he is the one who decides who lives and who dies. Right? He is Lord over life and death, as well as the ghost world itself. And it describes him as being consumed with fury. This is at the bottom of page 210. He rushes towards them, raising his club. And then the dead child's father throws himself on his knees. He opens his robes. He exposes his stomach to death. He offers his death. Right? This act of opening his robe is an act of offering, that he's giving himself over to the guardian. And then he says, "Crush me with your club, shoot into me all your arrows, for I am dead already. My heart has died when my child died. It is for his sake only that I have come here, and my kin friends accompanied me because they love me." And the tears rolled down his face. He makes no weeping sound. The tears fall out of his eyes and make tracks in the black with which he has painted his face. Right, so there's a sense, again, this description is right, a very moving scene of him saying that he's dead already. And keep that image in mind, by the way, for it will reappear. Then the hunter speaks again. "You are the master of my life and death," right? He's speaking to the guardian. "I give myself to your justice. Yet, if there is anything of the people still left within you here in this ghost world, if any compassion or tenderness of the people lives in your heart, I ask you to accept these presents, which we have brought you from the living world, the earth world, and receive us as your friends." Right, so it's a very interesting thing here. We have this softening or attempt to soften his heart. This idea that if there's anything of the people still left within you, so did the guardian used to be one of them? It's not clear here, but there's this idea of, again, him needing to be prevailed upon. And how does he respond? Well, it says here that the respectful and the polite behavior of this man, his beautiful way of expressing himself, as well as his bravery and his love for the dead child he has lost, all these things open the heart of the guardian towards him. His fury dies away. He lowers his club and receives him as a friend. So these things, right, it really works. Ultimately, these things do soften his heart. He says, "You are a brave man of the people. Your heart is strong. I take pity on your sufferings. I honor your courage, and I will forgive you for entering the ghost world." So it really seems that it is courage, most of all, that softens his heart. He says, "I will do more. I will give you the soul of your child to take home with you." The heart of this hunter is filled with gladness. Right? So the soul of the child is going to be returned. He's going to succeed in his quest, it seems. But first, right, so the guardian is still speaking to the father here. He says, "Let us rest a while and amuse ourselves a little. It is not every day that someone comes to visit me from the earth world. You have power. I wish to play against you." This is going to suggest a game to play with him here, but note in this kind of middle paragraph on page 21 that he is explicitly saying that the father has power too. So they end up playing a game, which the stakes are tobacco and corn and spirit berries. So again, notice the repetition of the symbolism of 3. This is going to happen. On page 312, we actually see that the men win, which is kind of perhaps somewhat surprising. However, this does not anger the guardian, right? He says, "You are brave men, you are strong, you have shown your power, and you have won the 3 greatest things in the ghost world, tobacco, corn, and spirit berries. It gladdens my heart to give them to you, to take back to the earth world." So it's important that this doesn't, incur in any way his wrath. So in the next paragraph here, he said we have an important description of how it is that the child is going to be returned. says all the time they've been playing, they're hearing the ghosts chanting and rejoicing. And all the time they've been playing, the ghost of the dead child has been there in the wigwam. Right? He's with the guardian, but they can't see it. But the guardian takes the child and he makes him very small, the size of a nut. He puts this nut in a medicine bag and wraps it up tightly. So think of a nut too as very similar to the imagery of a seed, right? The beginning of life from which it grows. Here he says, the guardian, handing the bag to the child's father, "Here is the ghost of your son, the spirit of your son. Return with it at once to your own country, to the earth world, the land of living persons. As soon as you are there, build a special wigwam. Place within it the body of your son. Take his soul and put it back into his body. But be very careful. Make sure there is no opening of which the soul can escape, for he will not wish to leave the ghost world. He will not wish to enter the body again. And if there is an opening, he will escape and return there. Return here. He leaves this world against his will." So this is an interesting passage. The idea is that, right, the child does not want to leave. Right? It is against his will that he is being brought back. So what does that tell us about the journey? How do we then conceive of what the father is doing, or the character of the father? What does that say about the ghost world as well? But it says in the next paragraph, this father is filled with joy. He has gotten his son back. He is taking great gifts home to the people. And now he is about to be shown the ghost world, right? He sees those who have acted as they should, and how the animals allow themselves to be hunted and to be eaten by them. He sees their wigwams filled with the fragrance of fir and cedar. He sees the frantic dancing of those who have not acted as they should. He sees them eating rotten bark. Right? So again, there's a sense that judgment and death comes from action in life. Right? So again, it's very similar to the Christian idea of heaven and hell. Right? There's this idea that as the person, right, has acted in the regular world of earth, right, that this is extended out into the afterlife, and everyone gets their just deserts, as it were. And then those travelers return to their own country. They give to the people the gifts of corn and tobacco, right? They tell them that the guardian has sent this to them and that they must plant them and watch over them. And so it was done. And for many years after that, the people did plant corn and tobacco. Right? So there's a sense that these crops come from the guardian. That will have been an important part of their culture, right? This idea that things like corn and tobacco, right, they really are gifts of the guardian. But the narrative goes on. This is bottom of page 212. Is a time of feasting. The travelers have returned. It is a time for stories and dancing. Right? It's necessary to do all these things to thank, right, the guardian who gave them all of these things. Right? So there's a sense that, right, feasting and telling stories and dancing, this is the proper way to illustrate Thanksgiving. And so this father will dance. He will chant and dance. And he's doing all this in honor of the guardian who gave him back his son. He gives his medicine bag to an old woman to hold it for him so that he may dance. So he gives up the bag which he should be looking after in order to dance. Now this old woman is curious. She opens the bag to see what is inside. And instantly, the soul of the child flies out and returns to the ghost world. And instantly, the father of that child dies of grief. His soul flies off to the ghost world after him. Death for death. Right? We heard earlier in the story that he said, "I am already dead, for the life of my child is gone." And now that it flees back to the ghost world, the soul, the spirit of the father, chases after him, and he dies immediately. Death for death. And the people bury them both, and weep for them, and tell their story. So they're buried and wept for, but they're also remembered. And the act of remembrance is done through storytelling, right? Through this oral tradition of passing down these stories generation after generation. So to sum up the story just briefly, note that we have this image of the ghost world as a land far away, right, over the ocean. That is a land very much like the one of Earth. You can even walk to it, right? And the two interact, right? Apparently it's rare, but people can come back. But note that although you can travel back from the ghost world, It's not seen as natural, right? The soul seems to long to be there, at least the ones who have acted properly in life. And ultimately, one's fate in the ghost world is determined by their behavior on Earth, and that affects the character of the ghost world. Would the story be different if the father were trying to reclaim his son and his son were in a tormentuous state because of his behavior? But because the son is happy in this ghost world, what does that say about this father's quest? Is he seeking the salvation of his son, or is he only seeking his own comfort? And when he flies back to him, what will await him when he arrives?